Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to Helsingborg here in Skåne in southern Sweden. We're going to do my 5th or 6th visit I think to Brewski, and we've got quite an interesting beer to try from these guys today. This is their collaboration that they did with Nektar Meadery from Michigan over in America. It's called the Stuntman Toad. It comes in at 10.9% and it's a barley wine with honey added to the brew, so it should be really interesting. I reviewed the Nektar Meadery collaboration with Brewski recently, and that was a really quite interesting beer. The Be My Honey it turned out very, very nicely actually, although it was rated a lot less than I thought it deserved on Rate Beer. But Brewski, of course, are another really good Swedish brewery who do kind of specialise in a similar thing to Brewski, of course. I'm sure this one will be equally as interesting as that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews both from Nektar and from Brewski. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. The channel of course has a geography based tag system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on different countries, states or cities, whatever you're interested in. Do check out the whiskey and sake reviews as well, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review. Always interesting to hear from you guys, and your support is hugely appreciated. And in particular, please do recommend some other Michigan beers that I should be having a look at, because it's only really founders that we get over here actually. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brewski then. So Brewski were founded in 2014 in Helsingborg, which is in Skåne here in southern Sweden. But the founders of the company are Marcus Hjalmarsson, Johan Britsen, Alfred Olsen and Robin Skoglund. And all of these guys were really kind of inspired to make their own brewery because of the American kind of West Coast craft brewing renaissance. But Marcus was originally associated with the High Nose brand of beer, which was brewed at the Höganäs Brewery, which is a little bit to the north of Helsingborg. And some of these beers are still actually brewed there, although all of the Brewski beers are now brewed at this facility that they have in Helsingborg, and they've actually got quite an impressive capacity now. They're producing 100,000 litres of beer per month, and as of 2016 they also started their own beer festival which is called Brewskival, which has over 40 different brewers. I think they actually have their own bar in Helsingborg now as well. It might be a tasting room, but I'm not certain about that, but I certainly do need to go and talk to these guys the next time I'm up in Helsingborg. It really would be great to kind of get along and get involved with them, because they seem like a really nice company. When I've been sending them my reviews, they're always very kind about that. So if you're interested in Swedish beer and you particularly like kind of sour beers and fruit beers and things like that, Brewski are a company that you really want to have a look at. But anyway, on to Nektar Meadery now. So Nektar Meadery are based in Ferndale, Michigan, which is actually really close to Detroit, and they were founded back in 2006 by Brad and Kerry Dahlhofer with the help of their friend Paul Zimmerman. Now Brad had actually been a long time home brewer, and he made meads, beers, ciders and wines, and he actually made a mead for his and Kerry's wedding, and they joked that one day they would together form a meadery, but little did they know at the time that that would be true. But Paul was also a home brewer, and he'd brewed with Brad in his basement, and the meads that they were actually making together soon began to win awards at home brewing competitions. But in 2006, of course, when the credit crunch was starting to kick in, Kerry was actually laid off from her job, and while drinking one of these meads, she asked Brad, why don't you try and actually sell this? And so later in spring of 2008, when Paul was also laid off his job, this actually prompted he and Kerry to go forward with the meadery, which opened on the 2nd of August 2008. And this is National Mead Day in America apparently, but today they're producing beers, ciders, or hard ciders as they call them in America. We just call them ciders in Europe, even if they have alcohol, and they're also making meads as well. They're actually the largest meadery over in America at the moment, and they're picking up awards still, and the beers that they have are really quite interesting as well. They had some really interesting ingredients. It was a wheat beer I remember seeing that seemed to be a really interesting beer from these guys. So if you get the chance and you find yourself near Detroit, Nektar Meadery is probably a place you want to go and have a look at. They've won a lot of awards, and of course mead is a really very nice sweet drink to have a look at. So yeah, hopefully I can try some of their own beers sometime, and hopefully they start to send them over to Europe through System Bloget. But let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. It's actually kind of typical Brewski style art with this one. They've got this kind of cartoony style that they like to put on their beers. There you can see Toad being fired out of the cannon there. But it says on the side here, today we present you the fairy tale story of warrior princess Kerry and wizard Toad Brad, who decided to sweeten the relationship with honey, but not without spicing it up for all the amazing ideas that make Nektar Meadery worldwide reference for exceptional mead. In an unexpected amorous adventure with Swedish hillbillies, Stuntman Toad was born out of malt, hops and the previously mentioned gooey bee stuff. Expect nothing less than an evil Knievel type ride in this bold, reckless barley wine that will take you from zzz to bzz in 0.3 pints. So yeah, should be quite nice. As I said, 10.9% American style barley wine brewed with honey. So yeah, should be quite cool. As again, there you can see the artwork on this one. The camera's going a bit crazy with the light for some reason, and there you can see the typical Brewski artwork on this one on the bottle cap. There you can see Brewski with his top hat on this one. So yeah, really nicely presented. You can see on the back there, of course, there's the B Nektar Meadery B, which was also on the Precariat beer that I tried from these guys, and there is the Brewski microbrewery symbol as well. But yeah, it's quite cool actually to have another beer, and it's cool to see that American breweries are wanting to come over to Europe now and actually collaborate with some of these breweries, especially here in Skåne where I'm based. But yeah, as you can see, a nice smoky opening on this beer as we get it open, and you can smell some of these nice American red fruits coming off of this beer. Really enjoyed that. As I said, the Precariat collaboration that these guys did was really, really nice. So it was the thing the complaint I had about that beer was that rate beer rated it far too low actually, but this one does seem to be really quite highly rated in comparison. So as you can see, this beer really is, it's a really nice kind of reddy, bright orangey amber colour. It's almost a blood orange colour. I'm not sure how well you can see that colour on the camera. It's a bit lighter down here by the bottom of the glass. There's a few little bits of sediment floating around in this one. There is a degree of transparency if I put my fingers behind the glass, but overall it is quite opaque in colour. You can really smell the kind of toasted caramel and honey elements coming off of this beer. So there's a full finger of a kind of frothy, beigey coloured head on this one. Definitely frothy on this. It looks absolutely lovely, and you can see those little sediment particles just floating around in this one. It looks like an absolutely lovely, lovely beer. So let's have a look at the aroma on this one and see how we get on. So yeah, as you would expect from a barley wine, there's a nice toasted brown sugar element in this one. You can really smell that. It is quite toasty. You can smell a little bit of the kind of lighter, almost honeycomb things in this as well. It's got a little bit of a kind of biscuity, grainy character to it as well. But the honey in this one, for me, it really comes across as more of a sort of honeycomb kind of toffee thing in this one. But you can smell a bit of that richer, toasted caramel, just kind of underpinning it. When you sugar the beer up as well, there's a wee tiny bit of an almost earthy hop coming out of it, but that's quite minimal. Really, it's the fruity character that starts to come out. You can pick up a little bit of floral character, a little bit of kind of resins in there as well. You can just pick that up mixing in with the fruitiness in this beer. But when you sugar it up, you really start to get more of the nice fruity things going on. There's a bit of red fruit in there, you know, the kind of figs, raisins and sort of plums, but there's just a little bit of that. There's a bit of the sharpness that you might expect of plums, but I'm getting more of this kind of candied red fruit ester that I always talk about. The one that I always compare to Haribo Star Mix, the little heart-shaped sweets in that. It's got a lot of that kind of red character, but you can also pick out some of the American hoppiness from this one. It's not quite grapefruit in this, but it's a sort of peachy or maybe like an apricot-y kind of thing going on in this one. Maybe a little bit of orange as well. Not quite blood orange, it's not quite sharp enough for that, I'd say, but it's got a juicy kind of dark orange character, and that actually mixes quite well with the sort of toasted caramel element that's coming out of this beer. It really is kind of quite nice. So take a little bit of time, if you get the chance to try this beer, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the nose on this one, because there's a lot of stuff going on in it. And barley wines, of course, are big, quite complex beers, and that's half the experience with craft beer, of course. You want to take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma before you actually get stuck into the beer. But we'll have a go at this one now. So this one is the Stuntman Toad, a collaboration beer with Brewski from Helsingborg here in Skåne in southern Sweden, and B Nektar Meadery from Ferndale near Detroit over in Michigan in America. Skål! Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. Yeah, you know what's interesting about this one, I'm not sure exactly how old this beer is. Oh, it says on the back here that it's best before the 5th of July 2019. So I'm guessing that they've maybe put a bottling life on this one of about 3 years. So I'm guessing it was bottled sometime in July, and you can actually taste that in it a little bit, that it has aged. So maybe it's best that if you do get this beer, if they do brew it again, of course, do age it for a little while. You always get more out of a barley wine if you just let it sit for at least 6 months. because if you drink it fresh, of course, it's just, you know, it's just an absolute hop bomb, and you'll miss out on a lot of the nice malty character in this one. But what's interesting, what's striking me as interesting about the flavour of this beer is that it has the nice boozy warmth that you expect of the style, but the caramel character in it really comes across as a bit lighter. This barley wine is nowhere near as kind of syrupy as some of the barley wines I've come across before, and that's the honey. I always find, for me, in my palate, like honey always comes out as just that little bit lighter. It doesn't have the big syrupy mouthfeel that some of the other barley wines I've come across have. But as I always say, when it comes to this beer style, just sugar it around your palate and just let your whole mouth adjust to this one. But for me, this one's actually really kind of, it's a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel than some of the other barley wines I've come across. It has nowhere near the alcohol warmth either, and that's the honey just covering that up, in my opinion. That's really nice, and it's really interesting and quirky how it actually does that. So yeah, the middle of your palate, for me, there's a little bit of a kind of almost pale malty character. That just goes right across the middle of your palate, but on top of that, you can get a little bit of a kind of biscuity character. It's almost like that kind of digestive biscuit thing, but then there's a sweet, kind of caramelly aspect to this beer as well. But really, that gives way, and you have this almost like this honeycomb, honey wafer sort of thing going on in this beer. Yeah, when you have the beer on your palate, you can feel that big, oily, kind of caramel, toasted treacle thing going on in this one. But really, that disappears very quickly, and then it gives way to this kind of lighter, almost honeycomb flavour in this one. So that's really a little interesting quirk about this beer, actually. It really starts off big and syrupy, and then it just kind of mellows out really nicely and gives you this lighter kind of honeycomb feel, but it's definitely got these American hop characteristics to it. That's really interesting. So on the edges of the palate, you can feel a little bit of the resinous character just underpinning that beer, but that's more of a kind of minor part in this beer. Really, it's got some big floral character coming out, a little bit of that kind of aromatic, spicy thing going on. As you go around the front curve of your palate, it's a little bit more kind of lighter and grassy, I would say, which makes it really kind of interesting. It's actually quite a drinkable barley wine, this one. At 10.9%, it's actually scarily drinkable. You know, you could probably have one or two of these without kind of realising how strong they are. But yeah, the fruity character in this is really nice. I mean, the resins, a little bit of the resin, the kind of resinous underpinning in this beer that you have is really good too. So just go behind the front curve of your palate there, and you'll get this little oily bubble where a lot of these kind of fruity characters are going to come out. So for me, there's a little bit of an orangey character in there. You can pick up a little bit of a sort of a kind of grapefruity character, but that's again very, very minimal. There's actually a bit of a woody and nutty flavour starting to come out in this as the flavour progresses. Really, in the middle of my palate, I'm starting to get a little bit of this almost woody and nutty thing just come out there, which is quite interesting actually. But really, the fruity side of things is interesting because it has this almost kind of peachy or apricot-y thing coming out of it, and that's mixing quite interesting with these kind of red fruity esters. As I say, it reminds me of a kind of candied red fruit ester, as I was saying earlier, the one that you get from these kind of Haribo Star Mix heart-shaped sweets. It really reminds me of that a little bit, but then you've got this almost candied peach or candied apricot sort of thing mixing in with it. There's maybe a little bit of passion fruit or something there. I think grapefruit was probably the wrong thing to say. I think it's more of a kind of passion fruit because it's not quite as dark as you would normally associate grapefruit as being. But yeah, the fruity character in this one is interesting. Like I say though, the thing you've got to be careful with this beer is the fact that it is so light and so drinkable. You could easily think this one is just a kind of double IPA, mainly just from the alcohol warmth. Of course, the taste really does give you the impression of barley, which is the whole point. But yeah, overall, it's really nice, and the quirky thing about this beer, like I said, is the fact that the honey character that it has really gives it that bit of that lighter character that you wouldn't normally expect of a barley wine. The honeycomb flavour in this one just makes it seem that little bit lighter, but overall it's really nice, and I have to admit I wouldn't expect anything else of Brewski, and Nektar Meadery of course have a very good reputation, so you wouldn't expect anything less than a really nice beer to come out of a collaboration between these two. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I'd say this one's mid-bodied. It's quite light when it comes to thinking about a barley wine actually. The carbonation is very smooth. There's a big oily mouthfeel to this one, but as I said, again, a bit lighter than you would normally expect of the barley wine style. The malt base is really quite sweet in the beginning. You get some of these treacle things going on, but then it just mellows out and becomes a bit lighter, and it becomes a bit more of a sort of honeycomb flavour there. So that's really what makes it feel a bit lighter. You've got a good little bit of hoppy bitterness in this one, but it kind of smooths out and just becomes a little bit more fruity and juicy as the flavour progresses. But the hoppy bitterness, there is a little bit of it there that just lingers, but overall it's a big fruity and quite sweet malty beer, this one. And again, these two breweries have quite the reputation for themselves, and you wouldn't expect anything less. But it's quite a quirky barley wine, this one. So if you like sort of honeycomb flavours, if you want a barley wine but want something that's a little bit lighter, then this is the kind of thing that you would go for. If you really enjoy the barley wine style and want something a little bit different, then this could be an interesting one for you to check out. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this beer, I highly recommend that you do. Really interesting one from both of these breweries here. Brewski have some really nice stuff, so check them out. If you get the chance to try some Nektar Meadery beers as well when you're in Michigan, then that's a brewery you really do want to check out as well. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. This is the Stuntman Toad from Brewski here in Helsingborg and Skåne in southern Sweden, and Nektar Meadery from Detroit over in America. Really nice beer, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So until the next time, thank you for watching. Do check out my other reviews on the channel as well as my social media and things. Let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this beer and the breweries involved. I'd love to try more Nektar Meadery beers if I can get a hold of them, but Brewski are a very good brewery to check out if you find yourself interested in Swedish beers. The first barley wine I've tried from them actually, so really cool to try something a bit different from these guys. But until the next time, it's Lange just now, Stuntman Toad from Nektar Meadery and Brewski here in Sweden. Skål!